It's funny. The intro gets all messed up when I do other things with the computer, so I apologize for that. But anyways, we're early this morning. Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well. We got the Snorelord mug that Shannon wished she has, and we got our coffee. Nothing special today, just regular, plain old fashioned Folgers. Anyways, if there's anybody who has a coffee company wants to, make me affiliate, I'd be all about that. Or beard oil, one or the other. Two things that I could definitely be known for. Got my Iron Maiden shirt on. Who would have thunk that you'd be listening to a goofball that's so narcissistic to have his own coffee mug and loves Iron Maiden? Who would have thought that that's what you'd be watching in the morning on YouTube, right? But that's fine. That's fine. I am a wonderful I'm a wonderful, goofy, bearded coffee narcissist. So there you go. I want to. So Jeff was live last night. I missed most of it, but I went back watched the replay, and there was somebody brought up about dispatch services, and FMCSA had made a ruling on them, and according to Jeff, we're pretty safe because of the brokerage, so that's good. So yeah, I had a plan for that just in case that didn't sit well in our favor. And so there's a lot of things going in my mind right now. November is always a turbulent month. We got a lot of personal things going on that I will not go into. And Greg, I see you. We're going to try to take care of you today. See if we can utilize something, but I'm waiting, right? I'm waiting. So anyways, we'll do some shout outs and then we'll get some low board stuff. Hey, hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. And if you're bummed out that I exist, hit the thumbs down twice. That's fine. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Well, actually, it does. I'd be lying. It hurts my feelings quite a bit, and sometimes I cry myself to sleep because of the thumbs down ratio. It's. I know you guys can't see it anymore because it's supposed to protect you, because it's looks like it protects me, but really I can still see it, so it's pointless. Anyways, a little bit of a honorary sarcastic mood this morning. Try not to get down. So it's been yesterday was interesting. Constantly thinking of different strategies to run the drivers, and and this weather's not helping, right? Because if you think the rates in the southeast are crap, just wait until the weather turns really bad in most of the country, which it's gotten cold. Now people will be flocking to get to those Georgia and Florida loads, and so guess what? They stopped paying on them. So anyways, I thought I'd put this up while we read comments. Just a little bit of hope, right? Just a little bit of hope. That's kind of where we're at. Here, let's do this even better here. Let's download this. Did we download it? There it is. Open it up. There we go. Now we'll share the screen. There you go. Instead of my ugly truck, you get to look at that. Right? Right? Where's the cat? The cat is sleeping in the room. The other bad one is in here, so I got to keep an eye on her. I think she's going to chill out on the couch. Bill, you're right. The only constant is life is the only constant in life is change, right? All right, let's do some shout outs here. Old school, new school, you are here and you are first. Um, Shannon, good morning. Grafton, what's up? Hot seat. Desert Okie Pam. Truman H. CDN Freight Broker. Do you want to come in today? Or are you busy? Greg, what's up? Ice Road trucking today, Minnesota down to by Halley, Mississippi by tomorrow. We shall see. I'm at Shipper now. It's going to be a rough one, I think. Yeah. Just take your time. Be all right. Hopefully you're not on a Walmart load or something like that where if you don't make it in time, it could screw you. But you'd be all right. You're a trained professional. Good morning, trucker Carlson. Almost said the other one. Buck Brown rolling my 18s west I-20 into Texas. Good deal. I love it out there. Anyone with a YouTube channel has to be at least a little narcissistic. That is true. That is true. Hey, look at me. I got a microphone and I'm going to tell you my thoughts out loud. Just leaving with Cincinnati with 5,400 gallons of acid, heading to DePere, Wisconsin. Well, you're getting right in the middle, thick of it there. But at least you got some weight, right? Sterling, good morning. I saw that you were live early. Max Force, good morning. Bull of Woods. TJ, how you feeling, man? I was worried about you last night. TJ, I'm going to give you some life advice. I know you didn't ask for it. I know that I think you're older and wiser than me, but I get some of the things that you were saying yesterday, but I'm going to tell you with every fiber of my being. If you just shut those channels out of your life, you will be a happier person. Now, as far as calling people out because people are making bad career decisions based off of the power of the YouTuber, there is so much of that going on. And calling somebody out only gives them power, right? It only helps them trend because remember, YouTube algorithms love interactions. So if I got 100 thumbs down for this video, YouTube still sees that as, wow, 100 people have responded to this. So let's push it. And so, and the person that you were talking about, his MO is he's always been a recruiter. And always, 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 ever since the Travel Loco days, TJ, that was always his goal. His goal is to get the name of the company he's at in your mouth, in your head, and all, and if people want to follow him, that's on them. The smart people will do the numbers and realize that certain things aren't a good idea. I've seen the lease numbers at the company that person was talking about, and they're not impressive. So don't let it take your happiness, TJ. Don't let it waste any more of your time. Is it frustrating at times? Yes. Like this whole thing with RVT. I could care two craps. So, because what they do does not affect me. And the one time that I called out the person that you were talking about was when I had Schneider guys calling me freaking out because of things that person was saying. And you know what? It didn't do anything. It didn't make him stop. He just kept on, kept on, and kept on, and kept on because it was a recruiting technique. Back when all those YouTubers were recruiting for Traveloco. And how many of them are still at Traveloco? 0. That should speak, volumes to the people that are paying attention. But you got to realize that a lot of people get into this industry not knowing anything. And if you dwell on that, it's going to take your happiness away, TJ. And so that's where I worry about you, because there's it's wasted energy. It really is. And I stay in my lane, because unless something directly affects me, that person does them, I do me, right? I tell people, come over to Like Trucking because we got a good program, and that's it. But our program is 100% relied on the person that's coming over here. As long as you're doing everything right, Jeff pretty much leaves you alone. As long as you're not driving like an a-hole, I leave you alone. And you are free to run your business the way you want here, as long as it's legal, safe, with good moral standing. And a lot of people can't even do that, because, we would have 50 people by now if we could find those people. A lot of people struggle with that. That's just the nature of this industry. So don't let it take your happiness, TJ. I did not see a happy man yesterday or last night. All right? Because there are bigger issues that we have to tackle in this industry and in our country. Wasting one more minute on that person is not going to do you any good. Carlos, good morning. Cool Trucking, what's up? Big Houston's in the house. Mr. Bill, good morning. Where's the cat? We already talked about that. Luckily, the one that's peeing everywhere is sleeping, so hopefully I had to take her to the vet yesterday. Shut down last night on the Pennsylvania Turnpike due to weather and super truckers. Yeah, they're Pennsylvania's like, oh, I think it just fell a snowflake. Shut it down. So they don't want them pileups up there, because how difficult would that be to get rid of a pileup there on the turnpike? Wheelburner, what's up? Good morning. SST, you'll be in a few minutes. Okay, I'll try to email you a link if I can shut up, right? Because I'm about 10 minutes behind now. Post link, I got some time. It won't be an open link, Big Houston. It's CDN's got a few things to say. How's the Oklahoma weather? It's mellowed out. It's cold, but I don't think it's snowing or anything. So, roadless travel, top of the morning. Steve, just text you a great deal on drive tires. Maybe share on your feed. Okay. Cascade, good morning. I haven't heard from Cascade in like 5 weeks. He hates me. Let's see. Appreciate it, friend. Yeah, we're worried about you, TJ. And he kept ignoring my comment. I told you, did you still want to buy my truck and trailer for $96,000? Because right now I'm thinking that could solve a lot of problems for me. Not that I would recommend doing that. If the person had some serious money, SST, I might consider it. Because I've got an avenue for another truck if I want it. And it would kind of force me to do or die on this dispatch safety thing. Let's see. Shannon, good morning. Oh yeah, I already said that. Everybody's saying hi to each other. Eddie, what's up? Good morning. Nice catch you 2 days in a row. Yep. All right. Oh, he's laughing. TJ doesn't want to buy my truck now. So, all right, let me CDN, let me copy. Let's see, close this. All right. CDN, the market outlook that you give me, I'm going to just reply to that with the link. So that's the email that you want to check. 'Cause you're like me, you have 15 emails. There you go. All right. I just emailed you the link from the one that you sent me the market reports. CDN has got a few things to say, so I'm gonna step back when he comes in and let him say his piece. He has a rant coming up because here's the value that CDN has is that he's a broker, and so if you want to know what the other side, I mean, look, if you want to know the offense to make your defense better, I mean, when doesn't that make sense, right? Good morning, Nathaniel. And then while we're waiting on CDN, let me fix something here. Hopefully my internet doesn't get stupid. So Cool Truck says I love these segments of your show. Well, we've got a good one in here for you. Let's see, YouTube Studio. If you're new to the channel, I appreciate you. Did you guys like my thumbnail for yesterday's live feed? Say no to panhandling. I thought that was a great sign. Let's see. All right, we're going to adjust something here to keep the trolls out. And because brokers aren't popular people right now. I don't know why. Good morning, my friend. You are popular.
I don't think I'm popular, but
now you're popular with me.
Yeah, that's just.
No, I get a lot of compliments when you're on the channel. I mean, I think Thomas Wilson's about the only person that gripes. He's kind of a whiner, anyways. But he's our whiner. He's our neighborhood whiner, and we love him. But how's it going, my friend?
Okay, let me see if I'm caught up here. Okay, sorry, I made the rookie error. Didn't mute my other YouTube fast enough, so my apologies. How's it going for you, Steve?
Oh, not too bad. I got quite a bit of dispatching to do today, and watching the weather and seeing where it's like playing whack-a-mole with the rates. Sometimes the rate's good. I pay attention to the people that say where the best markets are, and it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. It's so I'm trying to find consistency in a whack-a-mole market. But I thought you brought some interesting things on the text conversation we had yesterday. So if you want to get into that, I'll let you.
I will utilize that to keep me on topic so I don't lose track. But I guess obviously in the last, well, it's coming up 72 hours, but the last 48 hours particularly, we've had yourself and many others all addressing the current market conditions, right?
Yep.
As far as and I think you addressed it on your feed yesterday that this low market is not the first time, but the unusual part of this low market is low market, but we got high fuel, right? So that's the unusual, because I when I look, if you were to take things at the higher level, 10,000 foot level, because right now it is a tough time, no question about it, for a lot of, like, it's not like this for everyone, but particularly you on the spot market and the van spot market, particularly within the US, this hasn't fully hit Canada yet. Just telling you, rates are still quite high in some areas, and especially cross border and stuff. Some areas are still strong, some are still, but it, rates in Canada is kind of like the trends. What's trendy in New York City, by the time it gets to Springfield, a few months later, like as a kid, any small town that gets the trend 3 months later, well, that's what happens with Canada. It's going to hit. It's coming. You can see the writing on the wall. It's coming. But the whole point was to say, the first part, just the top level, is if you were to plot out 4 quarters a year for the last 10 years, where the spot market rates were, right? You're going to be up, down, up, down, up, down over the course of a 10-year period. If you just put a plot, okay, in quarter one of 2011, where was it higher, low, and medium, and then you just kept doing that all the way for every quarter, 4 quarters a year for the last 10 years, it's going to look like a roller coaster, like a heartbeat, right? It's going to look like a heartbeat on a medical machine. And right now, the unfortunate part is that for a lot of carriers right now, this is the first time we're seeing these declines at this level, and right now we're at the bottom. We're near the bottom of that, decline, right?
There's where you're talking about. That's just the last several years, right there.
Yeah. So we're coming into the bottom of, like, when you see these dips, we're right in here. You're down low, right? We're coming at this bottom part. We don't know where the bottom's going to end. So the thing right now, I know everyone's pointing towards the brokers. Now, I'm not saying brokers are not playing games and so forth, but when you hear that someone like C.H. Robinson is laying off as many employees as they are, obviously things are changing. And I guess where my little thought process is first thing, I'll have a couple other points I'll bring up, but the first thing that brings to mind, lack of innovation on the carrier side of the industry. And I'm not saying anything, but if you think about it, what on the carrier side of the industry has changed or come new? And the reason when you look at this bigger level, the walls, like, Sage has talked about this, that carriers should go out, you get your own authority. Once you get your own authority, you should be out there getting your own brokerage and then getting your own direct shippers. And then when you have that direct shipper has excess freight that you can't cover, you use your brokerage to cover it. But we all know, because everyone in the YouTube world of trucking hasn't done that, because it's been more than 2 years that topic has been around, that concept that Sage has been doing that. And 2 years is enough time to get your brokerage and do all of this, and it's not happening. Why? Because I can tell you firsthand, if you were to join me as a carrier, I just recently added a sub agent to me, and I can tell you right now how much time it's taking me training. I spent all this past weekend training the person in this person has a little bit of trucking experience, not brokering experience, trucking experience, and I can tell you firsthand how much training is required behind the scenes to get a person up to speed. And so the vision I'm kind of having is that you got your carriers in one spot, on the right, and then you got your brokers in the middle, and you got your shippers on the left, and there's walls right between each of those. But what I'm seeing as we see the technology evolve in the world of logistics, the walls are getting taller. The walls to the brokers, because let's go back. DAT was the initiator, however many years ago, 20 years ago, or 18 years ago, 16 years ago, for load boards, right? It started out as truck stops. You went in there and you had that screen with the 3 buttons, and you had to press the button, because I knew, because when I started brokering, it was exciting, and I literally drove to truck stops in my area to see my loads, because I'm like, if someone didn't call me, I'm like, was this thing actually working? So I'd drive over there and literally look at the screen and see that my load is there, that they can call me. And so we had DAT boards, because originally, back in the day, it used to be faxes. When that's how it would be. The dispatchers would get faxes, and then the loads would be available through there, and it worked through them, and brokers eventually came. But if we looked at the evolution in the last few years, the things that come to mind was, the first thing that was Uber. So we had regular brokers with load boards. We had the various load boards out there, and the traditional post a load. You had a load network of people, but it was traditional, right? You called, you discussed it, you booked it, you literally would fax the load confirmation, or you might have emailed it or faxed it. Like, I remember when I first started, I would have packs and packs of paper. I've been paperless for over 10 years. I was paperless before it was common. But I remember I would spend hours, right? Because I'd print every load confirmation, fax it, make sure they signed it, and at the end of the load, I would have the original load confirmation. I would have this, the signed copy. I'd get the signed bill of ladings, the PODs, the invoices, all this stuff in a big, I'd have a stack of paper for every single load. And I remember I would have my desk would be at the end of a week, I would have a stack of papers. Anyways, so we move forward now, and let's jump to a little bit ahead. So all of a sudden, Uber Freight jumps into the marketplace, and they have this click and go program, and everyone's a little hesitant about this. But one of the things that a lot of the carriers enjoyed about the click and go programs back at that time was the fact that at first the rates wasn't great. They didn't have a lot of freight, but the 2 things they had going for them, 3 things I should say they had going for them. One, if you had a load fall off on you on a Saturday, you could go to that app if you had been pre-qualified, even if it wasn't the greatest, but you can click it on a Saturday, get booked, and go pick up a load of water or something, whatever they had available there. But at least you could book it on Saturday without having to. Often, many other brokers, the load boards were turned off. There was hardly any loads posted, and those that were posted, no one was picking up. The other thing that Uber did, they offered the best detention in the marketplace. As long as you had the app on and you showed up and it took longer than their 2 hours, they were paying $75 an hour. No one was doing that.
They also had the best Tonu.
Exactly. If
they
you had the Tono, it was what, $175, no questions asked.
well, not, but on top of that, it was like, I think it was like something like $2 a mile if within 100, within 150
Oh yeah,
miles.
that's right. If you had the app on, you got paid the deadhead mileage up to like 100 miles plus the tonal fee.
Yep.
No questions asked. So when they tried to be a little bit of a market changer, and they bled. They were hurting. They were hurting financially a little bit. But the only reason that they survived was they were diversified as a company. They had Uber Freight. They were just evolving to Uber Eats and so forth. So they had funding coming in. But I mean, I don't know the exact details, but I know that there was talk that that's why things eventually changed. Then as that click and go comes about, what comes about? Convoy as the next click and go. So, and what is Convoy? It wasn't even like a group of old school brokers created Convoy. If you read about Convoy was created by ex-Google, Facebook, Twitter coders.
Yeah, I met a lot of those guys. Those guys were pretty at truck shows. They were pretty aggressive on talking to the truck drivers because they wanted to learn. And I tried to tell them you need the human element still. But go ahead. I just thought I'd add to that. But yeah, that's
no, and I'm sure that if you look at Convoy's structure, probably 85% of their employees are this tech people, and they have their salespeople, no question about it, right? They do have the human element. But the point was, they came in with a click and go program, and then
you could bid on it. That was different from Uber, is you could bid on it.
Yes, you could bid on it. That was one thing that was different. You had the book now, and then you had it. But meanwhile, as Uber Freight and then Convoy comes into the scenes, Book It Now was not in existence, right? So now all of a sudden, JB Hunt and other apps start to develop their own load boards, and other bigger load brokerages develop their own big ones. And then all of a sudden now other load board, the big players of load boards now offer the Book It Now feature as well. I can tell you that the load board used in Canada has not changed. It's been the same load board, same structure for as long as I've been doing, over 16 years. There's no new features to it at all. It's the same old, and part of it is it's way more expensive than what you guys pay, but there's reasons for it. And I know the reasons for it, and it's to protect us. And I know that a lot of people who are Canadian that use LoadLink may not, they just think that they're gouging it, and I do agree that the prices are high, but I've met with the folks, and I can say that I've had a couple situations happen, and I can say that they stood by me where I had a load hostage by a carrier. They were not responding, so when I reached out to LoadLink, they stepped up. They immediately suspended the carrier's account. They reached out to the carrier and explained to them that they must deliver this load, and this carrier, basically, his business was suspended because they couldn't post any of their trucks. They couldn't call in loads or anything. And I have to give credit. They did step up, and that's part of the reason they charge us for that protection, so that they couldn't just go out there. There's IP addresses that they track, and they know what's going on. So there are things that they do. I agree that, do they charge too much in some cases? Yes, 100%. But when you look at the big picture of how they develop the software and how it does protect, because they explained to me some circumstances, it makes sense what they're doing. So, but that's the sister company of the 3-letter one in the US, DAT. So, but the summary is, all of a sudden now we're evolved into the Book It Now concept. So now we see, and I hear it from yourself, and we hear it from others, how in some cases you do like it, the fact that all you have to do is email with the broker back and forth, less phone calls. You're not on the phone for an hour, and you're getting loads booked. But when you do want to negotiate, want to talk to them and build that relationship, it's getting more and more difficult to reach the brokers. So that's what I'm talking about. When you look at the big picture of what's happening with, if you have a carrier, the wall, even just to get to the broker, is getting higher. And the wall to get even for the broker to get to the shippers is getting higher. And that's what I mean. So to get, direct shippers and stuff, and all this business is not as easy as they say. So where I kind of came in with this, so I'll literally kind of talk about this. So, everyone's blaming brokers for cheap rates. And then when we look back 2 years, so right now, everyone's mad about right now because we got low rates, high fuel. But let's take a step back 2 years ago before the situation that occurred in the world. When that situation occurred, it messed up the entire supply chain. And what happened? All the truck prices ballooned. Used market, brand new market, the rates went huge, and everyone was complaining, "Oh, truck, don't buy a truck now. It's so expensive, so expensive." Trailer manufacturers, they furloughed a bunch of their staff. They weren't keeping up with their production because they couldn't get employees back and so forth. And then they ran into raw commodity issues, and the used truck market as a result all went super high. And then the other issue that happened as this whole situation in the world happened, the supply chain on parts occurred. All of a sudden, all the parts that you guys could normally go to a shop, all of a sudden, we're 2-3 weeks out, and it's the amount of time that you took to get your truck repaired went from what would be normally 1 day, 2 days into multiple weeks. And you heard about some guys who were down multiple months in the past 2 years. There's many occasions of stories of drivers down for extended periods of time.
Yep.
So should we blame the brokers today and the shippers for the low rates today? But we never discussed how great it was that in those past 3 years that you woke up, you go to a load board, you find a load, you might have even bid on it and gotten a little bit extra money and think, perfect, hey, we got high rates. But when we look at these low rates today, do we blame the brokers and the shippers today about the problems of our high cost of operation? Or what about the tires right now? Tire costs are way more than they've ever been before. Insurance rates are way more than they've ever been before. That last 2 years there, so basically the shortages and also mechanics. We don't have enough mechanics in shops. If you talk to shops, there's not enough mechanics. And then the reality of what happened in the past 2 years is still trickling out. That's the reality, I believe, because look how many people in the past 2 years that if you asked all your friends, how many have gone to a dentist? Lots stopped going because of this situation. And going to doctors for regular, truckers go because they have to get that for their medical. But I bet you there's a ton of people, including myself, I have not seen a doctor in over 3 years or more. Right? I haven't gone for physical. I haven't done anything because you call, it's 2-3 weeks away, this and that. Like, it's just the whole world is it's upside down. So where do this bottom of the market, where do we blame the part to? So we got, all this stuff that occurred in the last things. Now, the next part is we can go into the blame game, right? Even in the $5 market, right? When the market was, we had a $5 market, but CD casting, I'll be honest, I'm not enough of an expert to say. I don't think so yet. I'll tell you why, is that sure, we have lots of, layoffs. And again, that's a wake-up call, right? Think about it. There is, I'll come back to my comments here, but just to talk about, when you hear about a company laying off, and you say, well, they're laying off and all this, and I actually seen a thing by, who was it? Who's the guy? Asian Mai had a little short about a group of drivers in front of their carrier of 300 employees, where he's laying off the drivers. And they were all standing in the front saying they need their money, they're short money, and they're all owed $10,000, $13,000, $14,000, and they're all going to have to declare bankruptcy. And this is in California. And when I watched that right there reminded me that, when you look at the world of trucking compared to other industries, I sent Snorelord a video to watch just the first 5 minutes. And it's a particular person who shared some experiences that, and I'm sure that this person is not the only person who has that we have drivers still, it's 2022. When I talk about lack of innovation by the carriers, we have the owner-operator model and the dichotomy of coming to the marketplace and dealing with brokers and negotiating and managing your cost as one truck. But then on the flip side of it, you got the mega carriers. The mega carriers are out here, and we have new drivers. That's where they go. So we got to be thankful for the new drivers to get that experience. But not all mega carriers are equal, right? Some are great. Some treat their drivers great. But I bet you that if around here on this chat and others, that have friends that are not on this chat, but they work for a mega carrier, that when they get assigned a load, they still have to, in 2022, go to some yard of that said carrier, drive around looking for an empty for sometimes up to an hour or more. So where, like, you know, and then often you hear about the employees, these drivers, they sometimes go to their facilities and the staff are not very nice to them. Their facilities sometimes in some cases are great, but the point is that they're not always being, the drivers at these mega carriers in some cases are being treated very well, looked after quite well, and they have a great life, they have good benefits and everything else. But that's not in every case. We hear lots of stories, and we've seen it in the past couple of years. How many times have you seen, and we all heard about, where a driver's going and all of a sudden the fuel card's cut off, they get a message, we're out of business, right? And they are bad actors, yes, but they are bad actors all the way through the industry. Yeah, Mr. Charles, this industry, because here's the reality. If you're on the spot market, you have to accept brokers. If you don't like brokers and if you hate brokers, I keep saying it. I've said this on Steve's channel a year ago, less than a year ago. If you don't like brokers, what have I've suggested? Create a website, get a LinkedIn profile, get an email distribution list, get someone who knows algorithms so that if you run certain areas of the country, that when someone looks up dry van in Springfield, Missouri, your company comes up. If you don't like brokers, get off the spot market. Pure and simple. Do it yourself.
There was a comment in DAT's live feed, I think yesterday, where a guy said that brokers were to blame for inflation.
Well, okay, so here's where we're going to talk about this innovation. Taking the company, the mega carriers. Let's take the spot market away. Looking at a mega carrier where a driver in 2022 is driving around a yard on his phone calling his dispatcher, yeah, that trailer is broken. Okay, this trailer has some stuff inside. This trailer is buried. They're going to have to get a yard person out, and so forth and so forth. Why is it, how come in all the years of trucking that a mega carrier who has hundreds of employees, hundreds of drivers, they have some, in some cases they have their own shops, why they haven't been able to figure out, let the dispatchers, when they're going to assign loads to a driver, that dispatcher then works with the yard jockeys, and within those yards they have a staging area. So drivers coming in for their loads, the yard person only takes direction from the dispatcher. When they come in, that driver is not driving around the entire yard. They're only going in, you know, maybe 50 trailers, 100 trailers deep. That's it. There's a staging line. They have all their trailers stored, but they have one staging line. A yard jockey is pulling the trailers, staging it where it's spaced out for the drivers coming. They know the driver's arriving. He says, okay, he has a load picking up at 10. He has 100 miles deadhead. They do the math through their system. They know what time the driver has to pick up. So within a time window, the driver has to pick up, and it's on his Qualcomm or his other, however it is. But why is it that drivers have to do this? So that's step one. So you get a brand new driver comes into the industry, and he goes into a mega carrier. So he's working there to get his time in, his experience. So he goes through the driver training and all this. And again, I'm not a driver. I'm not trying to say that I know this. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm just giving a perspective from what I see. So drivers are going through this process as being working as a company driver, but then they realize, you know what? To make money, you got to run, because they haven't changed the industry, because they pay them on cents per mile. And that's the reality. All of you that have been around for more than a couple of years and have been a company driver, the key to brokers, yeah, exactly, come on with it. Brokers are fighting survival. That's 100% right. And the reality is that when you're paying cents per mile, take away brokers, take away everything else, but the trucking industry is paying cents per mile. It forces drivers to run, which is good, because when they have, you know, national contracts for big companies, the drivers are going to get there because they have to, right? They're not paid per hour, they're not paid per mile, they're paid per cent, you know, a cents per mile. So that's forcing it. But then drivers realize, I can't be home consistently. And if they start feeling that their dispatcher, like if they have a bad, you know, they're butting heads with their dispatcher, then they realize life isn't fun, because it's like, well, I call the dispatcher, and if I don't like that load, well, too bad. Okay, go home, and then when you're ready to run, well, we'll call you when we're ready. And so the point is, If you're a company driver, and all of a sudden, once you get on your own, if you have a great dispatcher, life might be great. And there's many drivers, I've seen people on here that have been with company drivers for over 20 plus years and have had, or 25 plus years, and they've had nothing but a great career. They were treated well professionally their whole life, and they have a great experience to share. But we all know that that's not the story all over the place. We know that there's some mega carriers that don't treat their employees right. So what happens? Those drivers start talking to other drivers. Either they bounce companies for several years, or they go to the next company and find out the same thing. Well, in order to make money, you got to run. You got to run hard. And you realize at the end of the day, you're not making that as much money as you thought, considering you're gone. It's not like you're working hard 40 hours a week, but sometimes you might be on the road for 2 weeks and you're sleeping in your truck. So you're not spending money on a hotel, but you're not at home either. So you would think that there should be some kind of compensation. Like a lot of other companies, when you work at the airports, you work in the hospitals, you get a shift differential for working. Like you work in manufacturer, you get a nighttime shift differential. Truckers don't get when you have a load. Like how many? Like not even a shipper. No one appreciates that. And I know that that's a big issue in the industry. But the summary is this: when mega carriers are not, the starting point is, look at how the evolution of a driver. Once he gets a CDL, unless they work with us, they know someone at a small company that brings them on. That's a different story, and they coach them and train them properly. But if you go the traditional route, where someone who doesn't have a trucking background wants to become a trucker, gets their CDL, they're going to join some mega company, go with a trainer. Eventually, if they get frustrated and felt like they're not being disrespected, that's when they all of a sudden jump into a lease faster than they should have before they're ready. And then from the lease, they jump into owner-operator faster than they're ready. And that little thing that Asian Mai did yesterday, where he was showing some company about to go bankrupt or is going bankrupt, and the owner owes a bunch of money to people. First thing I thought is, when the employees of a trucking company are saying that you owe me tens of thousands of dollars and I have to declare bankruptcy to pay my own home bills, shows this is the issue that maybe in the trucking world, because there's so many costs involved, a lot of people come in with no business acumen. I'm not saying you have to be a business expert, but they don't have any basic business, how accounting works, receivables, how to balance books, how to make a decision about investments. And where I'm coming with this is, I need to pull up the facts. I'm a person that I like to be as much factual with evidence. And the reason I say, there it is. Okay, so there's a person I know. When we talk about layoffs and you hear Amazon laying off, 3 years ago, Amazon was hiring like crazy, right? And then we heard, 6 months ago, that Amazon was going to stop using contract carriers. Because to show how hard trucking is, look at Walmart. Walmart's got their own trucks. But do they use all their trucks for every load? No, you guys are still delivering there, because if trucking was so easy, Walmart would never use an outside carrier, because they're big enough, they could hire enough trucks and just take care of it themselves. It's always Walmart trucks, but that's not the case. And that shows how hard trucking is. And I'm not saying, but my point is this. I just got to see this. What is it called here? The exact title. Okay. And there it is. Okay. So there's a certified financial analyst. This person I know has a degree, a university business degree, with a title of a CFA, which is certified financial assistant, basically, or analyst. So this person is hired by a company. He took his, he had to study for a long period. He had to, go through a process to get there. But the summary is, this person I know is just one person at this one company. But when you hear about Amazon making cuts, and you make C.H. Robinson making cuts, this person has advised their owners how to, that, hey, you guys are bleeding, that if you don't stop this, you're really going to be under. So they stop the bleeding by making cuts. Is it the right thing? Always no. And is it fair? No. But the point is, as carriers, how many of you have a CFA, someone who knows numbers and has business outlook, taking a look at your business for you on a weekly, daily basis to help you make educated decisions for your business? Because if you're a one-person truck in your truck, right now you're just running from load to load to load. You're not seeing the big picture. And so when you think about this company that that person I know, the person I know, this company that they're involved in is very diversified because they analyze it and they come up with different ideas. And they even, this person I know has even advised their owner to get out of certain businesses that they're in, saying it's time to get out. You're in, it's time to get out. And so, like, for example, when you hear about this tough time saying, well, my costs are high and my, the revenues are low. So where's the creativity on the trucking side? An example of this, and I know a lot of people are not going to like it, but what about this idea? I know, Steve, your truck is parked, but how many trucks they're saying, oh, I'm going to park my truck. Well, instead of parking your truck, what if you had to hire someone so that on your days, you're the primary driver for your truck, but when you need your 36-hour resets, or you need a few days off at home for whatever reason, and if you own your own truck and your own authority, you're going to need days to do with business stuff sometimes. Well, what if you had another experienced driver that he keeps the wheels running?
We actually have 2 guys that do that here.
Right.
They share the truck.
Right.
We've brought both drivers on, and so that truck's always moving, but yet they get their, they're 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. They do that.
So I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying where like when we talk about, high fuel costs, but I kind of look at it that right now, look at if we go back just to, again, so that we're not just nagging on brokers and truckers, and actually run what numbers say versus their emotions, but go back in time. Look at the newspaper industry, right? We all used to, heck, that's how I started as a kid. I delivered the newspaper. I made good tips. I serviced my customers like heck. I made really good tips. That was my beginning, right? We all got a newspaper. My parents, that was the thing. You woke up, my uncles, anyone I know, that was the thing. You woke up and they read the paper, particularly on the weekends, right? It was thicker. There was all the details. It was the newspaper, right? When I started out, it used to be after schools, and then it moved to the mornings and so forth. Now, barely. Then if you don't pay for the online subscription, you can go get a newspaper. When you go get it, it's like barely nothing in there. So, the newspaper industry has suffered and bled big time. So ask the people who worked there over the years that had a career in the newspaper industry, whether they were an actual writer or they were the person doing the nighttime prints for the paper who made good money at that time, and now they're out of jobs. Let's look at the cell phone industry. When we all came out, remember those big, huge phones that we had? You know how expensive those were? And then remember the bag phones? They worked great, but they were expensive.
Yeah.
But if you lived in the country and you wanted a cell phone, you needed a bag phone. Those are the coolest thing in the world. And they still today have one of the best receptions. But cell phone costs back then, compared to where they are today, do you think the cell phone industry likes it? They had to make the change. Then you take the movie industry. Remember Beta? We had Beta. In fact, I remember as a kid that we had these big, huge discs that for a moment, you'd slide these discs in and the movies would play. Then it was Beta. Then the VHS comes. So Beta and VHS battled for about a minute. Beta walks away. Now, all those people who developed Beta, who thought that was going to be the next best thing, were done. So VHS was the dominant factor for many years. Hence, becomes Blockbuster and a few other small, corner video stores, but Blockbuster was the big one. They dominated the market. I was a Coca-Cola sales rep, and heck, we used to, I had a few Blockbusters. I used to service them quite a bit because it was a national account of ours. And there was some that were really slow as far as beverage sales, but some of them really rocked it out. They really cooked some. They sold not just VHS, but they were selling, beverages and chips and so forth. And as all of a sudden, streaming comes about. Blockbuster, no way, that's never going to happen. No, they had a chance to buy out Netflix when it came out, the concept, and they said, no way, we're going to do this. What happened? The marketplace forced it to change. The industry, the consumers liked the idea of online streaming. Hey, still the old faithfuls were there. They held on to the last minute, right? Getting the VHSs, and then DVD came, right? But you could, we all held on last minute, and we still can go to Walmart and get some DVDs for your favorite movies. But the point was, Blockbuster they were right there. Netflix was handed to them in their palm of their hands. And they walked away. They turned away. And then what happened to them? So here we are. Now so now let's look at the music industry. When the internet came on, pirate music happened pretty darn quick. I can remember there was 2 or 3 big sites I remember that were the big pirate sites.
Napster was one. And
Napster was one of them, right?
what's funny is Metallica and I forget some rap guy. I can't
Yeah,
remember
they
who
had
it
a big
was.
lawsuit with them.
I mean, they saw the writings on the wall and they said, look, if we don't accomplish this is going to be out of control. So, and I know where you're going with this story. So basically, the streaming came along and kind of did away with a lot of that.
Well, no, but the choice was that when Spotify comes on, you had Apple Music, but Apple Music wasn't quite streaming at the time. It was more of a purchase, right? It was a purchase as you go. Spotify was a little different. So the battle there was basically they wanted to be a legit streaming service. At the time, when the industry was there, record sales were dropping big time in the marketplace, right? And you talked about this. You had an opportunity to get into the market of it, a record store or
Mm-hmm.
DVD store, and cassette sales were almost nothing. It was DVDs, and then when streaming came about, well, hey, because as a kid, I remember I played LPs, and I remember one year I had some LPs that they were by the vent, so they warped the heater vent. So I had to put my eraser on top of the needle head to keep it so that it would, as it played around that bounce, that the needle head kept it from bouncing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the coolest thing. But then,
Mm-hmm.
and then when CDs come out, it was great. You could, in your car, you put it. If you actually, I had to get an adapter for my cassette player to play the CDs, but right, I went from my yellow Walkman to my Sony Discman, and then you could just press the button. You can skip to the next one. You don't have to fast forward. You can actually just press the button to skip. But then, if you played that CD too much and you took it in and out of the cases, remember I had the stereo where I had I could hold 6 CDs at once. That was the coolest thing, and you could hit shuffle, and I could press my timer. I could go to sleep listening to music, right? And I would turn it off. But then what happened? CDs started getting scratched, and then it didn't play so well. And then
Yep.
all of a sudden, streaming comes about, and people thought, hey, I can stream this, and then CD sales were suffering, and the music industry was holding tight on the purpose of to respect the creations of the creators and all the people behind the scenes, the artists, which I truly 100% agree that the artists need to get paid, but the way they were doing it needed to change, and they fought hard. But then I don't know the exact details, but Spotify comes about and they come up with an agreement, and here we are today.
Well, also they switched from marketing, like now concerts have like meet and greets and you have all this merchandising they come out with. I'm a part of a lot of CD collector Facebook groups, and a lot of them will buy like Metallica's Black Album. This is the Japanese version, this is the English version, this is the German version. It's like all these different, because they're collectors, and that's the money that they go for. But they pivoted, just like Cascade has said, if you can't pivot in and change the market, you will do the same. And I think that's CDN's point, is that those walls are keep getting bigger, and it's getting harder to deal with to maneuver around these obstacles.
Yeah, and so basically, that was the summary. Because if you think trucking is hard today, be a musician today. If all your friends think you're super talented, you got to get out there. Okay, so you go out there and you go to a local thing and you're playing. Ask Steve how hard it is to break it in the music industry. If you want to get signed on by Warner, Canada, Warner in the US, you know what they're going to tell you? When you can fill 16,000 seats, come and see me. When you have a million, Instagram viewers, like so many sports, there's a ton of sports out there that if you want to get a sponsor, if you're a model, talk about the other industry that's hard and cutthroat. The modeling industry. Doesn't matter if it's male, female, but if you want to get in with a model agency, first thing they're going to do is, what's your social media following? If you come in there with 100 followers, they're going to laugh at your face and say, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah, when it comes to bands, labels look for merchandisers. That they don't, that's the talent. Like everybody complains about Trucker's Coach, but you know what? He's got everybody talking about him. If he switches, well, when he switches companies, everybody knows about it, and his job is to put that company's name in your mouth, and it works. So, you can question, his business sense or whatever, but his claim to fame is merchandising, recruiting, um and it's the same with anything else. I mean, look at campaigns, political campaigns. The one who has the most money can put the most yard signs up. And so now that name's always in your face. And if people aren't educated, that's what they go with. So
Well,
it,
I'll get to
it
my point
you know,
to get me back to the circle, because I was trying to just show perspectives of how trucking in the low market right now, when people are waking up thinking, oh man, the rates are so cheap, let's hold out for the better rates.
right.
So where I'm going with this is that, yeah, we can play that blame game, but the reality is this: if you're a carrier, whether one truck operator or you're an owner operator for a carrier, and you're getting your loads through the spot market, through load boards, the reality is it's a stock market. Look at Bitcoin. 2 years ago, Bitcoin and similar things were the craze. The rates, the rates went through the roof. What happened to Bitcoin last week, right? It's a stock market.
Yeah.
So that's the next great thing. There's basically where I'm coming with this is that I feel what's lacking is that we complain about brokers and their games. We complain about, like, for example, brokers. I don't do this. My brokerage company doesn't do. I don't know of agents at my brokers that does this. Where I hear about you guys saying, well, if I don't use their trucking app, I get charged the fee. I disagree with that. A trucker should not be charged a fee. They can say they can try to force you, but to charge you a fee for that because you have ELDs. If you have an ELD system that you, especially the Samsara one, is the best in the market as far as I can tell you. Others are great, but Samsara is the best because it takes 1 second to pull a link and pass it to the person, whether shipper, consignee, any person in the world that has that link. While that load is on, I can click on the link and I can see where the truck is at any time. It's the best.
Yep. I
So,
agree.
so the point is, there's been no innovation by the truckers specifically, and I'll get to this here. We have owner operators where you own your own one truck. You're behind the wheel all day, whether you're doing the short game and sitting in docks, you're only driving 100 miles a day and sitting in a dock for 2 hours, driving 100 miles and sitting in a dock for 2 hours waiting to get unloaded. Or you're running across the country, you're doing a 12-hour day. So where's the innovation? Why are we not thinking about this? And an example, maybe we need to change the industry, how we're being paid. Maybe we look at it look at taxi cabs, right? Taxi cab industry had to change. Uber forced them to change. The market demand, you can say, well, just like, they basically, when you went into a cab, it started out, whatever, $5, and then it just ticked. And if you're sitting in traffic, it just ticked. No matter, you didn't know what your cost was going to be. Uber comes in, you click on an app, you go where you're going, it takes the supply demand algorithm based on the current traffic conditions. We're going to charge you this much for this lane right now. And you know your final price before you started. So what have carriers done to beat the brokers' game? They're always mad about the brokers. So what have you guys done as carriers? It doesn't matter if you're one truck or a mega carrier, to beat the shipper game, because shippers, you could take brokers out of the equation. Shippers play games too. I'm not saying all shippers don't, but they do. So what about crazy ideas like forcing brokers to change? Maybe we look at how do we, instead of running, everything's looked at rate per mile. But a lot of it is time. I think I heard yesterday, Jeff's feed yesterday, the dean say, what the biggest thing we have is time. Guess what? In Alberta, when I hire a truck to go to Fort McMurray oil sands sites, I've never paid per mile. Guess how I've paid?
Hourly, right? Or daily?
Hourly.
Hourly. Yeah.
Yeah, hourly. And it's not cheap hourly. We're not talking $50 an hour. I have a carrier, I pay $185 an hour plus 23% fuel surcharge. That's $224 and some cents an hour I'm paying.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's a 53 flatbed or step deck. Not an RGN, not a double drop, no ramps, but it's because of all the qualifications they have. All their drivers can enter any site, right? They're approved at all the sites. That's, they have that safety aspect. So you can't compare them to the general marketplace, because the reality is when you're running vans going dock to dock, and especially if you show up at a big warehouse and you're trying to be different, even if you are trying to be different and you're doing everything perfectly that you're supposed to do to get yourself to be different, it's very hard to set yourself differently. Because when you show up at that warehouse and there's 50 docks, sure, you might be clean and professional. You're wearing your boots. You did everything right. You're polite, professional. You had your ducks in a row. You knew your pickup numbers. Everything else, your trailer's nice and clean. Your truck is clean. All of that, you did everything right. You showed up on time. All of that. But the reality is that you did not. But you still can't make yourself different, because the decision makers are not there. They're just warehouse employees, unless you come across a manager. Maybe a manager will recognize that you stood out amongst the 10 other drivers there. Your mannerisms, maybe that helps a little bit, where all of a sudden that manager will be like, who is that guy? He was really good. That can happen. But what if we change? Maybe we have to look at will it change overnight? No, but maybe we should be looking at, carriers come up with the idea, when we take a load that's 500 miles, how many miles is that? How long does typical 500 miles take? And I think I put a number. So a 500 mile in a flat area would be about 14 hours, which includes your 2 hours load and unload. And if it's a hilly area, it might be 16 hours. So what if we had to look at the marketplace and say, instead of booking rate per hour, maybe we should say, okay, we have a chart. I can show you a chart right here. See this chart? I don't know if you can see it, but this chart is a fuel surcharge chart, right? It tells me when the price of fuel is at $5.23, the fuel surcharge should be 0.5873 cents. When the price of fuel is $7.50, the fuel surcharge should be $1. Interesting that we have a chart like this. So how hard would it take to develop a chart that the market uses that says 50 miles, 100 miles, 150 miles, every single mile, what's the longest trip across the country? 4,262 miles if you went from Brownsville, Texas to the highest point in Connecticut or Maryland or Vermont? Mm-hmm. What's the longest trip across the country? How about we create a chart on that? And
right.
Then you take the mile. Now, I understand maybe over a certain point, time would be different, but let's take the shorter run, 1,500 miles and less, but particularly this shorter run business. That what if we say, okay, when the shipper this way, when the shippers know, you book a load that's going 300 miles, you're booking the truck, you got 300 miles, if it's obviously going hilly, but let's just take the standard 300 divided by 50. So it's 6 hours, 2 hours load, 2 hours unload. So it's 10 hours of time. So you book a rate based on 10 hours, and you get 10, the brokers and the shippers have the truck booked for 10 hours. Then you're charging. Guess what? CN Rail in Canada, which they come to the United States, guess how their detention works? So they have detention that you get your 2 hours. If I have a driver do a live load for rail, intermodal rail, you get 2 hours for free, right? After the 2 hours, guess what? I get 30-minute notice that in 30 minutes detention begins. Often when I call the shipper saying, hey guys, or girls, or people, 30 minutes, your detention on that container is about to start, and you have to pay the driver time. Oh, all of a sudden, often that trailer's loaded and done because I gave them a heads up that you're about to pay. Sometimes they say, well, we're so busy, we just can't do it. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. But guess how CN does it? So they charge a certain rate per 15 minutes. I think it's like $16.25 every 15 minutes for up to 3 hours. Then I think after 3 hours, that 16 jumps up. I have to pull up the tariff, but it jumps up to like $25 per 15 minutes. Then after that, after another 2 hours, it jumps up to like $50 for every 15 minutes. Like they have it, stepped. Wow. And it's listed in their tariff. You can't negotiate it. The only thing you can negotiate in case the driver's handheld, he sat in the parking lot for an hour when the load was actually done, and we can prove that, that's a different story. But the point is, you look at the rail industry, they have tariffs. They charge fees for certain things. If you show up and their load's not ready, the driver goes away, you're paying their tunnel fee. They're not negotiating. You know what it's going to be in advance. Mm-hmm. If you're overweight, they're going to charge you the rate per mile to go to the weigh scale, get scaled, charge you the weigh scale fee. If you're overweight, you're going to get fined. Plus, if the miles to go back, the waiting time for the driver, for the shipper to readjust the load or take off a skid or two to keep the load legal, right? They have all that laid out there. So the rail companies have it going. The LTL companies have it going with tariffs, right? They charge their fees. If you imagine this, it is 2022, because I do a lot of LTL. If your business says golf course, church, school, university, just by having the name hotel, LTL companies charge you an extra fee. They don't even look to say, where's this? If it, like, let's say you go to a hotel and you go to a hotel and they have a shipping receiving entrance and then they have their guest entrance. I get it. If you go to a hotel and the driver has to drive where the guests are staying, you have to go slower. I get it. I would accept that. I accept those fees. But I've had some where the driver comes off a turnpike and goes right into the hotel's shipping receiving area, and they were unloaded in 5 or 10 minutes and they got off where they don't see no one. So the LTL companies just blanket it out, and if your name says church, they just automatically put you. So it's kind of, I keep saying that they're behind the times because they're charging fees without actually saying, the way that LTL looks at it, they say limited access deliveries, which I understand because that's the way LTL works. How Old Dominion, YRC, etc. The concept of LTL is that you have freight that is packaged up, ready to ship, Monday to Friday, 8 to 4:30. The driver shows up, paperwork's ready. They pick it up, it gets brought back to the terminal, consolidated, put on the trailer, move to the next point as efficient as they can to keep the cost down. The minute you stop that flow, you have the driver has to check in at security, has to do this, they're going to charge you a fee because it's limited access. I get it. But I have a situation where I'm constantly battling. I have a church I deliver stuff to, some skids of stuff. But the place that this church is located, I sent a map to my carrier. I said, go drive there yourself because I've been there. I know this customer. And the business they're in, their church, that they have their church inside of a commercial business that it has a loading dock. If they moved out the next day, some kind of a mechanic shop could be in there, or it could be a restaurant the next day. So the summary that where I'm going with this is that we need more ideas by the carriers. That's what I look at. When I hear all the people complaining about the low rates and the low things, what I thought about was, where is the innovation? And let's take one carrier cannot afford a big lawyer, right? One of you guys, even Jeff's company, if he wanted to, let's take brokers. And I brought up the point, let's say, okay, carriers want to, bash the brokers. Well, what is the issue with the brokers? Is it the rates? Is it their terms and conditions? And the one that I bring up is brokers who are deducting a charge from the rate if you fail to use their tracking apps. I disagree with that mode of business. They can ask, saying, I can reduce the communication to you and bugging you by if you were willing to provide this tracking app. And I'll even give you a bonus if you use it. But it shouldn't be that you get a deduction for not using it, right? So where I'm going with this is that one carrier is not going to fix the marketplace. There's over 3 million drivers, right? Now, what if a bunch of you banded together and now you guys can hire a big-time lawyer to say, we're not here to take brokers away from it, but we want to analyze, having the FMCSA analyze some of these brokers' contracts and saying, what is beyond the scope of expectation, right? And so I'm basically looking at it saying that, another is that, small carriers cannot afford a big enough lawyer to change the broker carrier agreement, but 10,000 owner operators could hire a big time lawyer to get FMCSA to restrict brokers from deducting fees if a driver doesn't use their tracking app. Basically, change is happening in trucking. Either help create a new path or put on a life jacket and go with the flow in the fast moving river of logistics, right? That's basically the gist of what I'm seeing happening, is that this industry it's a fantastic industry, but I think that we have so many people in this industry that it's changing. We have the old schools, but we have the technology, and we see it, as you guys all talk about, how there's the book it now. A lot of the brokers aren't picking up their phones. They only do things with email. The ability to negotiate is diminishing, and you can blame that on the brokers, but you can also say, well, the shippers, let's take it on the standpoint of the shippers. Always think that, a load is worth X amount of dollars. Well, should we be paying a load based off of the value of the commodity? Should toilet paper and a load of iPhones pay the same?
Yeah, we've had that discussion.
Right? And then the other one is we can blame When we talk about our cost to live, should we blame the cell phone companies, Samsung, Apple? They're constantly coming up with new phones, and it seems like we've all experienced it. All of a sudden, there's a new phone, and you're on the third or fourth generation, and it seems like, well, my phone seems fine, but it keeps slowing down. So that forces you to think, well, they must be changing the software, so they're forcing you to go out and buy a new phone, even though you don't need it. So the blame game will never stop. That's just the reality. You can blame all you want. You can go on social media and blame. You can rant. And hey, if you want to go on social media by venting your rant, and it reduces your stress level, then I encourage it. Because stress is the number one killer in life.
Yeah, I agree, and that's what a lot of this is. People are hurting right now, and they just look for something to blame, and which is, that's human nature. But I try to take the aerial view and look at, you know okay, look, these obstacles are here. How do you overcome them? Regardless of whose fault it is for fuel, whose fault it is for rates coming down, how do you deal with it? And I think it distracts from accomplishing accomplishing a solution.
Well,
you
okay,
know
like here's another example. When it comes to this industry, efficiency, because that's what happens when, as much as I know you guys don't want to hear this, having 10, 15,000 single carrier operators is the most inefficient thing we can do to our trucking industry. Pure and simple, right? Because you've got 15,000 different perspectives all vying for the same thing. And the shippers have this, if they have, loads, they don't really, we need less regulations, yeah. But the regulations is not like, regulations set apart. It's more about the innovation. That's the whole thing I wanted to ask, is that what have carriers done in the last 5 years? Let's just keep it 5 years for simplicity, to where brokers are scratching their heads how they're going to beat the carriers at their game. And what about the carriers? Like, think about it. If you go to a mega carrier. We don't hear no mega carriers on the social media platforms. There is some management person who works at a larger, it doesn't have to be a mega carrier, but someone who owns 100 trucks, 200 trucks, 300 trucks, whatever, some bigger carrier, where their background, they started in the trucking industry because their dad was a trucker. They were a driver, they worked, they got in the industry, they started a company. And guess what? Look how it's transitioned. When I started as a broker, majority of my trucking companies I dealt with were one guy. He had about 10 drivers, 20 trucks. He owned all those trucks. Yeah, exactly. So you don't know the people who know you. So yeah, but the point is, I had carriers that have they have 10, 15 drivers, but that one person or two people, two brothers, husband and wife, owned the trucking business. That's how it used. When I came in to the industry, that's how trucking was. If you wanted to get your own carrier authority, you actually went out and bought all your own equipment and trailers. You hired your drivers. And then all of a sudden, owner operatorship was not around 16 years ago to the extent it is today. And what changed it was, I talked to a lot of them. Even the guys were the good old truckers. What changed it was they would hire drivers that didn't look after their equipment. They didn't have pride in the ride. Mm-hmm. So it was costing them a lot of money because drivers would change companies and so forth. So all of a sudden, when the opportunity came in that they now can, through the insurances, allowed it, that you can get owner operators to buy their own truck, either lease, purchase, whichever. All of a sudden, carriers thought, hey, that's a great idea. So that's the whole point. Each of you that are running individually, we're not solving the big problem. But collectively, maybe we have to change, like where there's all of you can stay as owner operators. But let's look at how a condo board, when you live in a condominium, you buy the individual condo from whether $100,000 to $1 million, right? Some fancy condo. Once you buy in, you still have to continue paying a monthly condo fee. But you're always at the risk that that condo fee could have a big leak in the roof, or it has a problem, All of a sudden they say, hey, we got this $250,000 or $575,000 repair we got to do. Everyone fork over $5,000, right? But the point where I'm going with this is that maybe you can all be individual owner operators, but maybe we need to create some different condominiums where you guys are part of a conglomerate, yet you have the freedom, but you're part of something. I don't know. I'm just saying that right now, the barrier for you guys reaching, even if you said, yep, take CDN's advice here, I'm going to shut down the load boards, I'm going to stop using my load board, I'm going to go direct. Okay, well, what did you do to set yourself up for that? Where's your salesman skills at today? Where's your marketing at? How long will it take you to break through to customers who are going to give you regular freight on a consistent basis? Do you have the credit? Like, I have customers where I have $270,000 of credit. How many of you are in a position right now that, I don't know how you do it, whether it's credit line on your business? Because what if a company says, I'll work with you, and you say, okay, great, I have a factoring company. Oh, well, we won't accept invoices from factoring. Why? Because they bug us too much. So if you want to work with us, we pay 45 days. How many are you in your position of business to have a credit line to give that customer $100,000 credit today to start moving their loads and waiting 45 days? Are you in that position? How many can transition to that? That's the question.
Yeah, it's so whenever the argument gets on Facebook about just finding your direct shippers, there's more to it than that. And then the equipment, a lot of these places, you're going to want to own 5 trailers so you can constantly drop and hook. I mean, it's not as easy as everybody thinks
every
it
part of
is.
this logistics world is not easy, because right, if you are a carrier and you want to bring on a new driver, you have to have a second trainer to train that person. You have to ensure that that trainer is a good trainer and that they understand your company policies and everything else. You have HR people, safety people to get a trucking, the roots of trucking where brand new drivers are beginning cost the company a lot of money. And we've seen it in the past. Go and Google bankrupt trucking companies. How many have that happened to? Tons. We've talked about it here before. How many we've seen have been bought out, right? Other companies buying other companies. That's how the big companies grow. Like, if really, when you think about it, for like a company similar to Light Trucking or whatever, if Jeff really wanted to take it to the next level, the fastest way for him to grow is go find 2 or 3 companies and just buy them out, and he takes over their business wherever they're running.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what, like, for example, there's a shipper here that Prime was never in, and they ended up buying out, and they can never get in there as far as contract goes. But then one day they bought out the company that did have the contract, so boom, now they're at that shipper. I mean, bottom line is, and I think this is where you were going, is there's a lot more to it than what we see on the surface, and the entry level is only money to get into this industry. I talk to countless people that don't even have CDL, and they buy a truck, they get their authority, and they put a driver in it who don't know anything about the industry. And the problem is that becomes your competition. So it's easy to stand out from those people, but the blame game only kind of hides. I mean, I don't blame, look, if I fail, if I go out of business, or even if I just decide, what, it's no longer for me, I'm not having fun anymore, or it's no longer profitable, that's all on me. I don't blame, I could sit there and blame fuel prices. No, it's my inability to accept and deal with the fuel prices. That's what, so I think it's just a lot of depth that a lot of people just
Well, I was going to
are
say,
overwhelmed
here,
by.
when I talk about, like, the whole thing I brought about was, again, I'm not saying I'm an expert at this. I'm just bringing perspective. And I believe
Right.
that the thing that I'm seeing in the trucking industry, and I'm making a broad stroke, so I'm not saying it's like this everywhere, but again, I'll just bring up the word innovation. What are we doing as carriers to be different? To make right now, the brokers are saying, well, would they control the rates, they control us, but what can you guys do to change that? an example, and I think the starting point would be, you guys have talked about it. Even before you got onto your platform, there was other people talking about it. But in the past couple of years, there is so many other, your channel included, and many, 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 many others, all talking about how to manage your business. It's 2022, and I talk about there's analysts that companies hire to determine, like, when they're going to go invest, like you take Starbucks or similar companies. When Blockbuster was around, and I know this, and I know that pharmacy companies do this because I know this as well. Grocery companies like Kruger, I guarantee you that there's someone in Kruger that's on the real estate division. What their job is they're analyzing, like, when a city's growing in sales and they build a new community, and there's a new subdivision being built. There's pharmacy companies out there and grocery store companies out there and Walmart's out there. They have a person. That's what their job is to do, is to say they're monitoring the marketplace, like what's happening, what cities are growing, what things are changing, they're connected to all this stuff, and they're making educated financial decisions. Is it always the best? Not always, but they're taking the data, and they'll say, okay, this city now has this new suburb coming up, and there's a land that they've marked as part of this development for commercial buildings. And Walmart's going to analyze the density and where's their other stores. Could they make money there? And they're going to vie to get in there because they want to be one of those landmark stores. And Kruger is going to do the same. And other pharmacy stores, they have people behind the scenes doing all this stuff. And then those people who identify these locations, it then feeds up to these certified financial analysts to look at the business and seeing how this is going to work for them. So where I'm going with this is saying, what are we doing? Like, it's 2022, and we haven't, like, again, let's take this. Don't even worry about the lawyers. Let's just take 1,000 of you owner-operators, small owner-operators, went out and found some CFA, paid them a fee, right? Paid them some kind of fee for a 1-year salary. So imagine, let's say this person makes $200,000 a year. They charge $200,000 divided by 1,000. So it'll be $200 for 1,000 owner-operators to hire a $200,000, and let's say you have to do that for 2 years. So 1 year is them learning the business, and the second year will be them analyzing. So let's say 1,000 of you come together right now, put $400 on the table, make it 5 to be simple. Put $500 on the table right now, research out whether it's in New York, Texas, California, find the most brilliant certified financial analyst. Someone that would work for Google, something like that, that knows numbers and how to analyze business. Someone that worked for Walmart and other companies like that. Hire them as a consultant for 2 years. Pay them $400, make it $500,000 for 2 years for 1,000 of you, for $600 or so. You say to them, we're gonna feed you. We're gonna give you, each of you are independently going to give this guy access to all your TMS software so they see every load. You want this guy to come out at the end of it. The first year he's just going to learn, study what's going on because he doesn't know trucking, but he knows financials. He's going to study and learn all this. Then he's going to come back and tell you, should you manage your business cost per day, cost per mile, and then for a new driver coming in, he watches, he sees, he can take one of you that started you were a driver, but you went out and bought a truck. He can take all your numbers and watch it flow, what your startup costs were, what you're running, all this stuff, and make a decision. Has anyone done anything like that? We haven't. Why not? Right? We're still deciding what is the best way, lease purchase. We're still deciding, and it's been doing this battle of back and forth has been there for years, right? Should we run the business? How to manage your numbers, right? Look at it this way, look at it that way. And I'm not saying that there should be an exact science to be like, this is the only way to do it. No, there's always ways to do it. But the point is, we're still having this debate that the one thing for sure that I think many of you talked about it, but the one thing for sure, if someone wants to go out and buy a truck, regardless, high market, low market, all this, but what is the minimums that they need to come in? They say, well, you got to cut your home cost down. And what does that mean? What's the reality? Like, you should, like, in my mind, I don't care what business you are. If you're going to become a plumber and you're going to buy a $5,000 van filled up with all your plumbing tools, you'd worked for a company, you got tired of it, you're going to put your name on Facebook and start, either installing, toilets and stuff like that at people's homes, or you're going to repair leaking stuff, whatever you're going to be. but you're just going to be a one-person plumber. Go on Facebook, advertise, and so forth. You got QuickBooks. You're creating invoices. But what is the cost to get in? What if he doesn't like? What is this? Cut your cost down. Well, how many months of emergency fund should you have before you start? What kind of down payment should you start? How do you get to that point? But there, we talk about it, but is there a clear roadmap? There isn't. And that's what I'm talking about, the innovation. There's no clear roadmap. There's ideas and concepts and tips and tricks from people's years of experience. But where's the innovation? We have TMSs to help track it. Yes, all that. But people are coming into this business with a mindset of one thing, of the glory of trucking and stuff, but the numbers aren't always adding up. And that's where I'm talking about. We need some better innovation, pure and simple. And that's where I'll leave it at that. We just need innovation.
Well, excuse me, CDN, thanks for coming in, man. I'm going to wrap this up.
Yeah, I got to go as well, but I appreciate. I apologize. I'm not trying to be a rant. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone else. And hey, brokers are to blame. That's right. Point to that. And if it makes you feel better, all the rate problems, blame it on CDN Freight Broker. I'll brunt it on my shoulders today that I'm the culprit to this problem. So, but anyways, I'll leave it at that. But I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm just throwing some ideas, perspectives, because I believe that trucking, particularly in the dry van market, where it's the high volume commodities that we're doing dock to dock business, is the most susceptible. Like the specialized, the reefers, some of the flatbeds and the heaviest stuff is very unique, and that's a whole different world you're working in. But the typical spot market, we're in this low coming out of a high into the big low that we're having, is the awareness that change is coming. I don't know what that change is going to be, but we need to come up with some new ideas. That's if you're not happy with the current, what's the alternative?
Yep. All right. Well, thank you,
Thanks
CDN.
so much for
I appreciate you.
And like I said, appreciate it. Thanks so much. Talk later.
All right. Thank you. All right. That was CDN, guys. Hey, if you enjoyed this, hit the thumbs up, please. We had up to 75 people in here, so some of you care. And yeah, it's more to it than what, I think a lot of people come in this industry not realizing what the depth of what you're actually doing, is going on. So with that being said, you guys have made some really great comments. I can't go over them all now. But great discussion. It's always good having CDN in here. It gives you the perspective from the other side of the phone. So, and Sage does too, but I didn't let him in today. Because I don't want this to be a 4-hour live feed, So, but anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate every single one. Hit the thumbs up, and we'll leave you with this beautiful, touching song about the emotional damage that trucking does to you. Peace.